Hey everyone, I'm Ian Douglas, the author of the website techinterview.guide. I do live streams every Sunday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern about topics relevant to interview preparation for the tech industry. I occasionally record longer Q&A sessions, and I've started to break those into smaller videos to post. And there'll be information at the end of this video about how to get in contact with me if you have additional questions. Let's get to it. Which of the following topics would the algorithm be most important to know before a FAANG kind of interview? Search algorithm, sorting algorithm, hashing algorithm, or dynamic programming? This is a great question. Leading into interview prep, knowing what kinds of questions you're likely to be asked by a company when it comes to technical challenges is a really good way to be prepared. My recommendation there is to use a website like Sean Prashad's website. Then I've shared that URL in the past. I'll see if I can copy it out of a browser in another window and paste it in the chat. And I'll put it in the YouTube description later on. But Sean Prashad's website is a really, really good prep tool for seeing the kinds of questions that companies are likely to ask. It's not a guarantee that they're going to ask you these specific leak code questions. Let me paste it in here in the chat. But it's a really good study tool, and I've talked about that before, and you can go back and you can check out the video that I made on shortcutting the leak code grind. And by looking at Sean's website, you'll see a new thing at the top. It was a recommendation that I made, or like a GitHub issue that I passed along. Said, hey, it would be really cool if someone could, add something to the site that when you pick a company, that you show kind of like a frequency of the kinds of questions you're likely to be asked, so that you have a better idea what you should sort of maybe prioritize your study. And someone did. Someone picked it up as a bit of code that they wanted to help Sean with on his site, and Sean actually merged in the code and published it. So that was pretty cool to see that in action this week. But one thing that I wanted to point out on that site, and I'm just going to load it up here on my own so I can kind of talk about that real quick, is if you pull up Facebook on that list, you see dynamic programming is like the second most popular type of question that they'll ask. I actually did a mock interview with someone recently, and they were actually told that Facebook will not do a dynamic programming problem with them. So I don't know if they're changing their tactic, but it might be that Facebook is changing something about their interviews. So coming back to the question, which of these algorithms would be the most important to know? Search algorithm, sorting algorithm, hashing algorithm, or dynamic programming? I would say three of those things are actual implementation, very specific implementation, like a search algorithm, like go implement merge sort, or go implement, a binary search. Where with dynamic programming, it could be, hey, you got a handful of dice that are all the same number of sides, and I want to know how many different ways you can roll a sum of 20. That's a dynamic programming problem. But those, when it comes to sorting algorithms and search algorithms, there are only a couple of those. Hash algorithms, there's really, there are a couple of different kinds of hashing, the actual math portion of the hash algorithm. But there's not a lot to study for those, I feel. And so I would say when it comes to these FAANG level companies, the technical challenges that they're going to give you, the top ones, the top four that I primarily see, not just from Sean's site, but just also anecdotal evidence or anecdotal, conversation that I've had with other mock interviewers from those platforms on interviewing.io. Dynamic programming, depth first search, breadth first search, and backtracking algorithms are the top four. Now, some of those overlap a little bit, like a depth first search and backtracking. They're really, really similar. Whether you get into recursion for those is up to you, but those would be the top ones, I think, to study for pretty much any of the FAANG companies. Would be depth first search, breadth first search, dynamic programming problems, and then backtracking problems. I've interviewed at a lot of FAANG companies in the past, or companies that were later acquired by FAANG companies or Amazon specifically. And they all asked some sort of traversal kinds of question, like go find this thing in a binary tree, or how would you figure out like the maximum depth of a binary tree, and or find like a maximum sum in a tree of some kind. It's a lot of backtracking. So they can overlap a little bit. So it is important that you get an idea of how to study those different kinds of things. So that'd be my answer to that. Hey, thanks for watching. I love helping people out with interview prep, and I hope this video helped you in some way. If you found this Q&A useful, please consider subscribing. You can follow me on Twitch as well for the live stream twice a week. Check out techinterview.guide/streaming for more information. I also have a daily email series that you can subscribe to on the website. There are never any ads, and when you finish the series, I scrub your information out of my database permanently. Finally, if you have a question that you'd like answered on the stream, you can find my contact info on techinterview.guide. I prefer LinkedIn or email. If you leave your question in a YouTube comment, it might take me longer to find it, but I'll see you next time.